Hi, I'm Ray Dalio. Today, I want to talk to you about one of the biggest financial challenges facing millions of Americans: debt. If you're carrying credit card balances, personal loans, car payments, or any other form of consumer debt, I want you to know that you're not alone. But I also want you to understand something important. Debt doesn't just affect your bank account. It affects your freedom, your choices, your stress levels, and ultimately your future. Over the course of my life, I've spent decades studying economies, financial systems, markets, and human behavior. I've learned that the principles that make countries wealthy are often the same principles that make individuals wealthy. And one of the most important principles is this: you cannot build lasting wealth if too much of your income committed to paying for the past. Every dollar you owe is a claim on your future earnings. Every interest payment is money that could have been invested, saved, or used to improve your life. That's why getting out of debt isn't just a financial goal, it's a life goal. The first thing I want you to do is face reality. One of the most common mistakes people make is avoiding their financial situation. They know they owe money, but they don't know exactly how much. They know they're struggling, but they don't have a clear picture of why. In my life, I've learned that painful realities are often the most valuable opportunities for growth. You cannot solve a problem that you're unwilling to look at. So sit down and write everything out. List every credit card balance, every loan, every monthly payment, every interest rate. Don't estimate, don't guess. Get the exact numbers. The truth may be uncomfortable, but clarity is powerful. Once you clearly understand where you stand, you can begin building a realistic plan to improve your situation. Successful people aren't successful because they avoid problems. They're successful because they confront problems directly and systematically. Now let's talk about how debt is created in the first place. Most people don't wake up one morning and suddenly find themselves buried in debt. It usually happens gradually. A purchase here, a vacation there, a new phone, a larger car payment, a few restaurant meals charged to a credit card. Small decisions repeated over time eventually become large financial burdens. Human beings naturally focus on immediate rewards while underestimating future consequences. That's why so many people justify purchases by thinking only about the monthly payment rather than the total cost. They ask, "Can I afford $50 a month?" instead of asking, "Do I really need this?" That mindset can be dangerous because it encourages people to spend tomorrow's money today. When you use debt to fund consumption, you're borrowing from your future self. The problem is that your future self eventually arrives and must deal with the consequences. One of the most important distinctions I want you to understand is the difference between productive debt and destructive debt. Productive debt is debt that helps create future income or future value. For example, borrowing money to build a profitable business can be productive. Borrowing money to acquire a valuable asset can sometimes be productive, but destructive debt is debt used to purchase things that lose value and don't generate future income. Most credit card debt falls into this category. Financing a lifestyle that exceeds your income is destructive because it creates obligations without creating assets. Wealthy people generally use money to buy assets. Struggling people often use debt to buy liabilities. Understanding this distinction can completely change the way you make financial decisions. The next step is taking control of your spending. Many people assume that their financial problems exist because they don't make enough money. While income certainly matters, spending habits matter just as much. I've met people with very high incomes who are financially stressed because they spend everything they earn. I've also met people with modest incomes who are financially secure because they consistently spend less than they make. Wealth is not determined by income alone. Wealth is determined by the difference between what you earn and what you spend. If you want to get out of debt, you must create a positive gap between those two numbers. Start tracking every dollar. Review your bank statements. Examine your credit card transactions. Identify where your money is actually going. Most people are surprised when they discover how much they're spending on things they barely remember buying. Awareness creates control, and control creates progress. Another concept that I believe is essential is delayed gratification. We live in a society that constantly encourages immediate consumption. Advertisements tell you that you deserve the newest car, the newest phone, the newest upgrade, and the newest luxury. The entire system is designed to convince you to spend. But financial freedom often requires doing the opposite of what the crowd is doing. It requires patience. It requires discipline. It requires the willingness to sacrifice a small pleasure today in exchange for a much larger reward tomorrow. Every wealthy person I know understands delayed gratification. They understand that temporary sacrifices can create extraordinary long-term outcomes. If you're serious about escaping debt, you must learn to value long-term freedom more than short-term pleasure. Now let's discuss debt repayment. If you have multiple debts, focus aggressively on high-interest debt first. Credit cards are particularly dangerous because they often carry extremely high interest rates. Every month that balance remains unpaid, interest compounds against you. Think about what that means. Imagine earning 25% on an investment every year. Most investors would consider that incredible. Well, paying off a credit card charging 25% interest is essentially producing a guaranteed return, equivalent to avoiding that cost. That's why high-interest debt should be treated as a financial emergency. Make the minimum payments on all debts, while directing every available dollar toward the highest interest balance. Once that debt is eliminated, move to the next one. Progress builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence. While reducing debt, I also want you to focus on increasing your income. Many people concentrate exclusively on cutting expenses, but there is only so much you can cut. There is often much greater potential to increase earnings. Ask yourself a simple question. What skills do I have that people are willing to pay for? The economy rewards value creation. If you can solve problems, provide services, or develop specialized skills, your income potential increases significantly. This might mean working overtime, freelancing, learning a new trade, starting a side business, or investing in education that improves your earning power. Don't underestimate the impact of an extra few $100 per month directed toward debt repayment. Small increases in income can dramatically accelerate your progress. One of the greatest financial mistakes people make after increasing their income is immediately increasing their lifestyle. They get a raise and buy a more expensive car. They earn more money and move into a more expensive house. They receive a bonus and spend it on things that don't improve their financial future. This phenomenon is known as lifestyle inflation, and it's one of the biggest obstacles to building wealth. Every time your income increases, resist the urge to increase your spending. Instead, direct that extra money toward debt reduction, savings, and investments. The faster you eliminate debt, the faster you regain control of your financial future. I also believe strongly in the importance of having an emergency fund. One reason many people remain trapped in debt is that they have no financial buffer. When an unexpected expense appears, a medical bill, a car repair, a job interruption, they immediately turn to credit cards. The cycle repeats itself over and over. Even while paying off debt, try to build a small emergency fund. It doesn't need to be enormous at first. The goal is simply to create a cushion that prevents new debt from entering your life. Financial resilience is one of the most valuable forms of security you can build. Another lesson I've learned is that consistency matters more than intensity. Many people become highly motivated for a few weeks, make dramatic changes, and then return to old habits. Real financial success comes from sustainable behavior. It's better to make steady progress for 3 years than dramatic progress for 3 weeks. Debt freedom is usually not the result of one heroic decision. It's the result of thousands of disciplined decisions repeated over time. Every unnecessary purchase you avoid, every extra payment you make, every dollar you save, and every smart financial choice compounds into something larger. Small actions repeated consistently create extraordinary outcomes. As you begin reducing debt, you'll notice something powerful happening. Your cash flow starts improving. More of your income remains in your pocket instead of going to lenders. This is where the transformation begins. At first, you're focused on survival. Then you're focused on stability. Eventually, you're focused on growth. Once debt payments disappear, you can redirect those same dollars toward building wealth. Imagine someone who was paying $800 per month toward debt. After becoming debt-free, that same $800 can be invested every month. Over time, that money compounds and grows. The habit that once financed debt becomes the habit that creates wealth. This is why I often say that cash flow is more important than appearances. Too many people spend their lives trying to look rich rather than become rich. They purchase luxury items to impress people they barely know. They finance lifestyles that exceed their financial reality. But true wealth is often invisible. It consists of assets, investments, savings, and financial flexibility. The truly wealthy person isn't necessarily the one driving the most expensive car. The truly wealthy person is often the one with the greatest freedom and the fewest financial obligations. Financial freedom ultimately comes down to choices. When you're heavily in debt, your choices become limited. You may stay in a job you dislike because you need the paycheck. You may delay opportunities because you can't afford uncertainty. You may experience constant stress because every financial setback feels catastrophic. But as debt decreases and savings increase, your options expand. You gain flexibility. You gain confidence. You gain peace of mind. That's why I believe financial freedom is not really about money. It's about control. It's about having the ability to make decisions based on what you want rather than what your debts require. I want you to remember that progress rarely happens in a straight line. There will be setbacks. There will be months when unexpected expenses arise. There will be moments when you feel discouraged. That's normal. Every successful person experiences obstacles. What separates successful people from unsuccessful people is their response to those obstacles. They continue moving forward. They adapt. They learn. They remain committed to the process even when the results aren't immediately visible. If I could leave you with one final message, it would be this: your financial future is not determined by your current debt balance. It's determined by the decisions you make from this point forward. No matter how much debt you have today, you can begin changing your trajectory right now. Face reality. Know your numbers. Spend less than you earn. Eliminate high-interest debt. Increase your income. Build an emergency fund. Stay patient. Stay disciplined. Stay consistent. Over time, these principles can transform your financial life completely. Remember, wealth is not built overnight, but neither is debt. Both are the result of repeated choices. Start making choices that serve your future rather than your present impulses, and you'll be amazed at how much your life can change over the coming years. That's how you escape debt, regain control, and begin building real financial freedom.